So we got 6 minutes on this auction. Welcome to another DeLorean Tech Bring a Trailer auction live stream. And this is an 81 DeLorean DMC-12 here. This one apparently was acquired here on Bring a Trailer about 2 years ago, I think. And there's actually a link here. So this is November 2021, so almost 2 years ago. So whoever it is... So whoever it is, he's got a huge car collection. He bought the car and he drove it a couple hundred miles. It's a 39,000 mile car. Currently sitting at 48,888. I'm thinking it's going to go a bit higher. So he paid, I think, 55 for it back in November 2021. We'll click on that. Yeah, 55,777. I don't remember doing a live stream on this one. This might have been one of the ones I skipped. I don't know. But anyway, he didn't do too much with the car. All right, what's going on here? In fact, I don't think he did anything. He drove it 200 miles. I think he did an oil change. That's about it. So I think one of his reasons for selling the car is he's got too many other cars in his collection. You can see the photos in the background. He's got quite a collection here, and so he is reselling the car and bring a trailer. I don't know if there are any issues with this car. I did want to bring in Chris Miles. Unfortunately, he's unavailable to talk with us about the car today. But let's take a look at the comments here. I was reading a few stuff last night on this car just to kind of bring myself up to speed on it. It is an automatic. Looks like it's got a lot of collectibles and, you know, other stuff that came with the car. So it's got a lot of stuff here. He posted a few videos, which I think, let's take a look at those. 48,888. Oh, I think this was a video of just the mirrors. I wanted to see like a driving video. Oh, here we go. Let's see what he's got here. All right, let's skip to the driving part. There we go. So he's got some driving videos on here. Very kind of low resolution stuff going on here. So the car drives. Alright, that's cool. Everything, gauges look okay. Everything's fine here. It is an automatic. I'm assuming these are recent, so having just bought the car almost a couple of years ago. Looks like it runs okay. What else do we have? He's got one driving video. And he's got a cold start. So let's take a look at that. There's the original.
That is up for sale now on Bring a Trailer, and this is going to be
Starts up okay. Sounds okay. It does have a lot of original stuff in there, which is kind of common with these cars, especially these these Bring a Trailer cars. The original plastic coolant, the overflow bottles in there, original fuel hoses. He did replace some of the other, or at least I think the owner prior to this guy replaced some of the fuel system components. I think he replaced a fuel pump and some other stuff. It actually, it's either in this one or in the description for the previous auction of this car here. Let's see here. I think he replaced like the fuel accumulator. He did everything except the fuel lines, which is kind of like, well, why not just do the fuel lines as well? We're at $50,000 right now. So I'm so glad they scheduled this this auction right during my lunch hour, because I actually miss doing these live streams of these Bring a Trailer auctions. They get kind of pretty exciting sometimes. We got a few guys in the chat here. Let me see if we can pop that out and bring you guys on screen. I need to do more of these, because when I start doing these after so long, I forget how to do them. I probably need to do a dry run the night before, so that we don't have a problem like we did this morning. I started the stream earlier, and the screen, the resolution was just messed up, so I decided to just kind of restart it, and I fixed it. So I don't know how this is ultimately going to look. It looks okay here on the screen. I've got a test going on as well here, so let's see what we got. So we have ZL1 Power 69. Ramblin' Tom. What's going on, guys? River Dark. Again, sorry about the delay. I was in meetings all morning. I didn't have a chance to check my OBS just to make sure that everything was fine. I had scheduled this stream with the previous settings. It didn't work out. Whatever. I think we're okay now. I'm looking at the stream on my phone. It looks okay. Hopefully everything sounds okay. Yeah, I can hear myself, so I'm good. All right. About 2 more minutes left. I'm expecting this one to fetch more than what this guy paid for it back in 2021. So he paid $55,777. Still has the old tires on it. Those have got to go. BF Goodrich, those are definitely old tires. Again, I don't think he did anything with the car except for an oil change. And, you know, he only put 200 miles on it, apparently. An oil change was carried out in January 2023, so there's that, right? If you do your oil changes on these cars, you know it's very very easy to do. I actually just did it mine a couple days ago, and I filmed it again, probably for the 3rd or 4th time. I'm planning on putting that one up pretty soon as well, just to highlight the easy oil drain valve. I love that thing. I reached out to Toby because a few of you guys have asked me about a connection to the oil drain valve itself that would enable a cleaner oil change. Unfortunately, there isn't an option because the drain valve sits so close to the frame cross member. There's no way to connect a downspout on that, so you can connect the hose to a hose end. They have those, but it just doesn't fit. You know, Toby did a lot of research on that, actually worked with the company to get that done. Unfortunately, there is no option, so you have to all the oil has to go on the frame. That's just how it is, right? But still makes it a lot easier. So I went ahead and filmed that. Anyway, back to this. Let's take a look at the comments here, see what we got going on. So we're at 51,000. Again, I'm expecting this to fetch over 55. It would be unfortunate for the seller to get less than what he paid. 51,000 for a running car like this, an automatic, be a great deal for whoever it is. So Big Boy Slapper is currently the high bidder on this one. Let's see what else we got here. I want you win so I can just find out about your screen name. Big Boy Slapper. Yeah. Refresh your screens. Oh yeah, he keeps saying that. I remember he sold another car and something happened where there was a bidder that he thought he won, and as it turned out he didn't, so he was like really upset about it. I don't know what's going on there with refreshing your screens. I guess that's one way to kind of make sure that, you know, your bids are going through and you're getting the latest and the greatest, you know. I think it all depends on your setup too, if you're bidding on these things, your connection, all that kind of stuff. So if the guy was on his phone or something and bidding on this, bidding on whatever car this seller was selling, not this one, a different one, then that could be the problem. But he's telling the bidders to refresh your screens, right, so that he doesn't have a repeat issue of what he had before in his previous auction. This guy, this car finder David. So this guy is apparently a big seller here on Bring a Trailer. He sold a bunch of stuff. He sold one just last week. He sold this Mustang, this nice looking 89 Mustang Saline for $89,500. That's a nice looking car. So this guy's got quite the collection of stuff here. Well, just 10 listings. But if you look at the what he's bid on before, so wow, he's going for a Nissan 300 right now. Like, looks like he's shopping for one here. Anyway, we're at 52.5 and a minute and a half to go on this one. So I was reading some of the comments here on this car, and it does include, it still has the original fuel lines, and that was, there was some discussion in the comments about that. I think there might have been something about the original coolant overflow bottle being on there as well. Again, those are kind of common. You see that a lot on these Bring a Trailer cars. A lot of these cars have probably just come out of storage. And, the seller probably just wants to, throw it up on Bring a Trailer, see what they can get for it. Maybe they'll do some minor stuff just to get it up, and running again. But, you never know what these sellers are doing with these cars, and obviously with the original fuel lines, that's a big sort of issue in the community. Most people are in favor of replacing that because of the engine fires that you see once in a while. They're not super common. I think because a lot of DeLorean owners are doing something about it. They're replacing the fuel line, so you don't see them a whole lot. The last one I saw was probably a couple years ago or something like that, and it was actually a local incident. But anyway, fuel lines absolutely should be replaced, especially if you're planning on driving this car. If you're gonna, if this is a museum piece and you want it to be concours and you want to leave all of this original stuff in here, that's fine too. I mean, as long as you're not going to be, driving it frequently. It's always a risk to have the original fuel lines in there. I did read a comment though. There was somebody who mentioned that he was actually, let's see if I got this one right. He was okay with the original fuel lines and the original plastic coolant overflow bottle in there or something like that. Let's see here. Oh yeah, something about not required, right? When in fact it is not required. I don't know if I agree with that. So there's a lot of back and forth between some of these guys here. This guy here, Merc S55. 53,005. So we got a last minute bid coming in. So 2 more minutes left. So this guy was trying to point out that he liked this car because it proves the point he has been making on here for years. I don't know what his point was. Treat these cars the same as you would any other 40-year-old car. Replace parts when they fail, not because some so-called experts insist on it. I don't agree with that. 54,000, got 2 minutes left. I don't agree with that. I mean, yeah, I agree with the fact replace parts when they fail. Sure, you kind of have to. But I also believe in replacing parts before they fail, right? Things like the fuel lines, things like your trailing arm bolts. You have to inspect your car. It's not just maintenance. It's also inspection, maintenance, and inspection. Okay? Not just maintenance. Okay? You don't just replace stuff when they fail. You replace stuff before they fail. So that's something I would add on to that. He's saying that, he's got this car here has 39,000 miles with the original fuel lines and radiator overflow. No fires, no explosions. Well, yeah, I mean, those aren't super common, but it could happen. Why take the chance, right? Why take a risk? And replacing the fuel lines in the overflow bottle, it's very easy to do. And it's low cost, right? I've got videos on the channel that show you how to do it. We've done it. I've done it on my car. I didn't have to take it in. Did it in at least the fuel lines in my own garage. You know, me and Chris, we went to town. Didn't take that long. Went with the DPI fuel line set. I think it set me back about $400 for the set. And they might be a little bit more expensive now, between $400 and $500, but it's insurance, right? Money well spent. Same thing with that overflow bottle. Again, if you are going to drive this car and you don't want it to break down, you don't want to explode in flames, etc., you're gonna need to upgrade it, right? There's a lot of known failure points in the car. We got 15 seconds left here, 54,000. 10 seconds left. Let's see what happens. Are we gonna get less than what the guy paid? 54,000. Yeah, we got 54.5. So another 2 more minutes. So anyway, I don't know if I agree with. I don't agree with this guy. You know, he's saying he's a DeLorean owner. Speaks from experience. I guess he's been lucky, right? He hasn't had any issues with the original fuel lines. Let's focus on the fuel lines. The radiator overflow bottle, those fail, and there's a reason why they fail. And you know, but the fuel lines really is sort of a. I mean, it's a big gamble to just leave the original ones in there because they are a known failure point. You know, these are 40-year-old fuel lines, 40 plus. A lot of these cars have sat for many, many years, maybe even decades, without even running. So you don't really know the history of these cars, right? And the current owner of this car probably doesn't know the history of this car in its 40-plus year lifespan so far, right? So who knows what has happened? Who knows what sort of maintenance was done or not done, or how long the car sat? You just don't know. Every car is different. So why not take an abundance of caution, replace those fuel lines? Again, it's not major surgery on the car. It's going to set you back thousands of dollars, and it buys you peace of mind, right? And you want to do all of them, all 13 in the engine compartment. There's 2 fuel hoses that connect from the fuel pump to the hard lines. Get rid of those as well. If they're original, replace them with new ones. And there's a couple more that connect to the fuel accumulator. So about 17 lines total that should be replaced on this car. So we're at 18 seconds, 54.5, which again would still be a pretty good deal for this car. It looks like a running car. I think the owner would have vetted out any issues if there were any, but we'll see. He drove it 200 miles. So let's see what happens here. 54.5. That might be it. That might be it. So if he did sell it for 54.5 here, it's a little less than what he paid. Yeah, that's it, guys. 54.5. So he lost a little bit on the car. Prices have definitely softened. Prices are all over the place with these things, and it really just depends, right? Let's see what else we got going on here. Yeah, so Mud Shad. Let's see who that is. So he got the car here. Looks like he bid on a few other DeLoreans here in the past, like about 3. He finally got serious on this one over a year ago, looks like. So he's probably wanted a car, kind of lied and wait for about a year. If you look at this one here, didn't quite hit the reserve, 48,000 on this one here, and this particular car today went for 54.5. Let's take a look at some of the past auctions, and let's see what we got here. So we'll just type in DeLorean, and we will see where we are at. So today, 54.5. The last one on Bring a Trailer last month sold for 42.5. That's pretty low. And then you had one a week before that bid to 62, didn't sell, and then another one that sold for 63. So the prices are, you know, I mean, this one here, I don't know if that's a project or not. 42.5 is pretty low. So I don't know what's going on there. I didn't really follow this one. It's another automatic. It looks okay, but let's take a look at the engine compartment. Oh, yeah, that one. A lot of rust, a lot of corrosion going on there. So this car probably sat for a while. Undercarriage, yeah. I mean, these photos aren't that great, and there's not a lot of them. Let's take a look here. There's a few more of the engine compartment, so that could be why it didn't fetch as much. So, I mean, the days of seeing 80,000, I mean, we just don't see that as much anymore. 63 here, that's pretty good. 46, that's a big difference there. And literally 9 days later, 55.5 here, so that's in alignment with what we saw today. Another one, 53.5, same thing. 56.5, about the same. The last time you saw one in the 70s was back in February. So prices have definitely kind of settled in this range. You definitely can see it, right? The last time we saw one sell for in the 80s was last year, back in November. Let's see here. So you have not seen one get past 72,000 this year. That's what it looks like. So the trend is kind of down. Again, with these cars, you know, you never know what's going to happen. You think they're going up, then something happens, and you don't you don't see that anymore, right? So a price is going down. I think they're kind of softening a little bit. And look at this curve here. I mean, you see it's a kind of a downward trend, right? And maybe now's the time to start buying. I don't know. I mean, the days of like 100,000, 101,000, 72, 79.5, 82, you know, 80, 79,000. Those might be a thing of the past now. You're seeing in the 50s, low 60s for maybe good running, good condition cars on the high end of things. So we got 54.5 on this one. So I would say that's a pretty good deal, you know, considering that this car sold 2 years ago for 55.7. So not bad. All he's got to do is replace those fuel lines and get a new coolant overflow if he wants to drive this thing around safely. Definitely check the trailing arm bolts. That's another thing that I think is even more dangerous to just kind of ignore than the fuel lines, because if you're driving, you know, 88 miles an hour and one of those fail, that could kill you. You could die, you know, in a car accident. Trailing arm bolt. The fuel lines, obviously a completely different scenario there, right? A car fire. And I wanted to get back into talking about that because this is I didn't read all the comments on the fuel lines here, but it felt like there was some back and forth between one commenter here and another one in support of or against replacing the fuel lines. I'm one of replacing these fuel lines, right? And if they're original, and I think, let's see what we got in the chat here. Yeah, 50 is cheap for sure. I think that just leaving the original fuel lines in place is definitely risky. I drove around after I bought mine for probably a good year with the original fuel lines on the car, and knowing that, yeah, I had to replace them. You know, I was a new owner. It was definitely something that everybody kept telling me to do, so I did it, right? And glad I did it. I did them right, and you know, there is a right and a wrong way. You know, those lines, if you don't know how to replace the fuel lines and you don't install them correctly, you could kink the hoses and create other issues with the car. So let's read these comments here. So there's one guy on here that is not a proponent for replacing the fuel lines because these quote-unquote so-called experts that insist on it. I don't know what his experience. He says, I speak from his experience. I don't know what his experience is, you know, with that. There's another guy on here, Mr. Chalky. So I've seen Mr. Chalky on here before. He is a proponent for replacing the fuel lines, those original fuel lines. Is this particular car likely to catch fire? No, the chance is small. Likewise, the chance of a line breaking and leaving you stranded. But as time goes on, That's important. As time goes on and the more you drive, the chance increases and a fire is possible. That is absolutely because these lines are not getting, they are getting older. They are not getting any younger. Of course, as time goes by, they get older. Okay, and the more you wait, the older they get, and therefore the risk increases, right? A car fire is a scary thing no matter how small. Strongly advocate braided fuel lines in the community because of original safety lines are a hazard and it's cheap insurance, just like I mentioned before, right? It is cheap, right? And as long as they're done correctly, you got somebody who knows what they're doing, you're good. And as long as for coolant tanks, I haven't looked closely at this one. There are original ones still going strong and in excellent shape and don't need replacement. On the other hand, some develop cracks and clearly will fail. Yes, that's another thing that I also agree needs to be replaced. Again, cheap insurance. Now, will that cause a car fire? No, but you may end up overheating your car, which will lead to failure of the vehicle, right? And then probably some costly repairs. So why even take the risk? You can take the coolant overflow bottle out, the fuel lines out, and keep those, right, as concours. If you want to compete in a concours show, you can keep those on hand and you won't lose points, but it's identified as a safety issue, both of those. And the only reason to retain the original lines is masochism. Or non-driven collector car. Again, right, for concours purposes. If you insist on doing that, then that's your choice, but don't pretend it's a good idea. I wholeheartedly agree with that. We should not be pretending that using and maintaining the original fuel lines is a good idea. It isn't. We've seen what could go wrong. So there's some back and forth here. Appreciate your comments. I agree that preventative maintenance is good on all cars. My argument has always been that the comments made are only on the DeLorean. Okay. No one tells a guy buying a 61 T to replace parts that don't need it. It only happens with DeLoreans. My advice to a new owner is treat it just like any other car. Buy it and drive it. I don't believe my comments should be removed just because I disagree with you. Seems a little harsh. So he's kind of soft on that. I mean, he's not really pushing back a whole lot. There's another guy here with the comments as well about the fuel lines. I think this is good for calling out the constant woodpeckers that are redundant about all the required items you need to be changed in a DeLorean when it is in fact not required. If he's talking about the fuel lines, I don't agree with that. Correct. Only on a DeLorean do these guys continually state the same thing over and over like they are godlike. Okay, don't agree with that. How do they know what the buyer intends for the car? True, it could be a museum piece. Again, this is just advice, right? A lot of people want to buy these cars because they want to drive them, and you have to drive these cars, right? We all know that as owners, they have to be driven. I drive my car minimum every 2 weeks, right? And that's kind of going long, at least once a week, just to get it on the road, just to drive it, right? What do you think for regarding the trailing arm bolts and when to replace them? So I do have a video, Mr. Mandalorian, on that specific thing. There's a K-Base article on DeLorean.com that talks about it. You need to do an inspection on them before you decide whether or not to replace them. As far as when, I mean, it just depends. If they're in good condition, you may not need to do that. The reason why the trailing arm bolts fail is because there's one consistently talked about reason in the communities is that over time, especially when you're doing alignment work, mechanics have over torqued the trailing arm bolts, right? Either they torqued them too much or they torqued them with the suspension hanging. So they had the car up on a lift, but the car was not supported on the wheels, right? And they torqued them that way. You're not supposed to do that. And that could lead to problems, right? That could lead to deformation of the trailing arm bolts. So there's a test on how to do that, an inspection that DeLorean recommended. I went ahead and did a video and showed you how to do that. It's very simple. You just have to turn the trailing arm bolt itself, and if you notice a deflection, then that's a good time to replace those. It's a good reason to replace those because that could end up cracking the bolt over time, and you don't want to do that, especially at high speeds. That is very dangerous. Nobody really talks about that a whole lot, right? But that's definitely something that you need to keep your eye on. The Inconel bolts are out there. Those are supposed to be indestructible. That's what I went with. And again, I have a video on the inspection of your trailing arm bolt. I think the video is, you know, I can't remember the name of the video. You know, but and then I have another video on how to replace the trailing arm bolts. So there's 2 videos. You can look for those on my channel. I definitely recommend doing that. Fuel lines and expansion tank will be replaced. We'll check the trailing arm bolts. Thanks for the tip. Yeah, so I think that's definitely a good idea. Let's see what else this guy says here. I found know-it-alls interesting as they are so myopic, although well-intentioned. Sometimes the constant input is misguided. I have 2 DeLoreans, which I've described under the post. One is completely stock with less than 2,000 miles on it. Okay, let's stop right there. He's got a completely stock DeLorean with less than 2,000 miles on it. The car has never been driven, basically. Okay? 2,000 miles is not driven. So the car has literally just sat most of its life. And if that's your intent, fine. You know, you can keep the original stuff on there with the, you know, intention of not actually driving the car. It's just going to be a collector piece. Okay? That's fine. Right? I've worked in design with OEM motorsports, quite familiar, blah, blah, blah. Some car buffs simply go over the top and spewing their knowledge or lack thereof. I know some will criticize that I've never bought a car on BAT, which I have personal reasons. It doesn't really offer anything about why we wouldn't change the fuel lines. Okay, it's got a DeLorean with 2,000 miles on it. It's got a museum car, collector car. He just probably doesn't drive it at all, right? And you know what? I mean, if you're storing the car and you're maintaining your car and you're keeping it in tip-top condition, the risk of car fires it minimizes. It drops, right? You know, like I said, I drove my car for several thousand miles on it with the original fuel lines for about a year. Didn't have any problems, but you know, the car had been. I knew the history of the car. It had been babied by the original owners. I'm the second owner of my car. I don't, you know, some of these other cars have been owned 4 or 5 different times. Who knew? Who knows what those original owners and subsequent owners had done to the car, or done for the car as far as maintenance goes. You just don't know. Like I mentioned before, the car could have sat for extended periods of time with fuel in the fuel tank. Maybe somebody tried to start it up, got, you know, contaminated the fuel system. You just don't know. That's what I don't see being talked about here. Okay, you just don't know the history of these cars. So why not? Why not be precautionary and replace the fuel system components that can be replaced, should be replaced? These are known issues in the community. Let's see if there's some other discussion on here about the fuel lines. Sorry for making this live stream about the fuel lines, but I did want to clear the air on that. I see some of these guys talking about fuel lines and saying, "Oh, you don't have to replace them." It's essentially what they're saying. You know, we need to. I feel like I need to address that, right? Yeah, you need to replace them if you plan on driving these cars. There was a photo of the fuel lines in the engine compartment here. Let's take a look at that. And I wanted to point something out. So just really quick about the fuel lines. We're going to wrap up that discussion. Where is the engine compartment photo here? I guess it's this one. So let's get you guys in the chat again. So yeah, Mandalorian, yeah, no problem. Wonder how many LS swap cars are driving around with stock trailing arm bolts. So that is something that has been addressed. Josh Shattenkirk and, you know, DeLorean Midwest, now they're doing those LS swaps. I'm pretty sure that they also are recommending those Inconel trailing arm bolts. I think that's the way to go there. Again, a lot of the trailing arm bolt issues that you have is due to, again, you know, the over torquing problems, and of course corrosion too. Cars sitting outside for a long time, flood cars and stuff like that. Corrosion is a real thing, If you don't address corrosion, that is going to eventually lead to failure. Okay, so there's a couple things working against you on the trailing arm bolts: corrosion and the over torquing issue, right? So you need to address that. You need to look at that, do the inspection that I have on the channel, and if you don't feel comfortable with it, you know, those Inconel bolts, that's an option. That's not required. The trailing arm bolts out there, you can get those high-end trailing arm bolts. They're not very expensive at all. I think DeLorean Go sells them. They're pretty cheap. You can go with those. You can go with the Inconel. Those ones will set you back. You know, I can't remember how much I paid. It's probably like $100 a pair, something like that. I remember Toby was selling those for a while, and then I think DeLorean.com, now they carry those too. So that's definitely a great idea. I replaced mine with the Inconel bolts as well. I haven't had a problem. I used the original new old stock bushings as well on those. I don't recommend anything other than those. I've heard, you know, stories about, you know, aftermarket replacement, rubber bushings that were not manufactured correctly, that should be avoided. I think if you're going to go with any sort of bushings on there, the original new old stock bushings are probably the way to go on those. Check and change the belts every few years. They're cheaper than an oil change. I think wear out faster because of the heat of the muffler. Yeah, I agree with that too. So David Bublitz online here is talking about the belts that are exposed to the heat of the muffler totally. Heat shield, you definitely want to address that. I actually put a heat shield wrap over my muffler to decrease the amount of heat in the engine compartment. So I think that's a definite plus there as well. But yeah, definitely check the belts. That's a good idea. We did a video. It was one of those Revving at 11 videos. Skip Vaughn's DeLorean. He has a muffler, a Camaro muffler in his car, and he was revving it, and he ended up shredding a belt. And I think it was his. I think it was the AC compressor belt that was shredded. So it doesn't take much, right? I mean, you got to look at the condition, look for cracking, look for the deflection, making sure that it's not loosening up, right? That could be a sign that the belt is starting to maybe degrade, is in need of replacement. It's very cheap to replace those. A little bit of work to do that, but again, definitely and some insurance there. So anyway, getting back to the LS swap cars and the trailing arm bolts, mandatory upgrade. Yeah, I agree. And I think, you know, Josh Shattenkirk and those guys, I think they recommend those polyurethane bushings. I can't remember the name of the company that makes those, but the polyurethane trailing arm bolt bushings, I think are what's recommended for an LS swap car. For your stock DeLoreans, I think if you're going to go with any kind of bushings, you could use the polyurethane. I don't know that it's necessary, but the original new old stock bushings are also good to use. I don't know what it is with those new old stock bushings, but they certainly don't make bushings like they used to, right? So either one of those two options is probably the way to go. I remember when I replaced my bushings, I used the new old stock ones. I got those from believe I got those from Danny Botkin here at DMC California. He had a pair left, so I snatched them up. I actually felt the ride quality felt a little better for some reason. I don't know what it was. I know my bushings were starting to separate. There's the metal on the inside, the sleeve was starting to separate from the rubber. I think I pointed that out in the video. So there was definitely some movement going on there, right? So you definitely want to avoid that and address that. But anyway, back to these fuel lines here, and I wanted to point something out that, you know, that was addressed in a recent issue of DeLorean World magazine. They had an article on DeLorean engine fires and kind of pinpointed the culprit there, and it really is the cold start valve fuel line, which is right here. The reason why, and let's see if I can zoom in. Let's see here. Sorry, guys. I'm trying to zoom in. It's going backwards. Well, let me see if I can open up the photo in a So you can see it right here. Okay, so this is kind of the culprit right here. This fuel line. And look at he's got it zip tied here. That's I don't like that. You don't want to zip tie the original fuel lines together. That's not good. That creates some stress on this. You can see it's kind of, got a curve right here, and then it curves backwards, and then it curves back again. So you're putting some stress on that original nylon fuel line that is 40 plus years old. So the reason why this is the culprit, okay, look where it is. Okay, you guys know what this is. This is the oil filler cap, and you have your breather hose that connects to your air box, right? So when you're doing your oil changes, arguably probably the most frequent maintenance activity that you do on your DeLorean, you take that off, right, in order to put oil in the car, and also to drain the oil as well, right? Yeah, I removed the whole thing. So when I just did my oil change a couple days ago, I took the whole thing off, right? And that fuel line, look where that fuel line is. It's right there. So when you are taking this off, if you're not careful, you could touch this, disturb that fuel line, okay? And you don't want to do that if you're running the original fuel lines. You want to avoid touching that thing as much as possible. Now, in reality, most people don't know not to do that, right? Some guys are like okay, whatever, it's fine. I'm just gonna take all this stuff out, and you have to move the stuff. This vacuum hose has to be moved out of the way to get the fuel filler or the oil filler cap off, right? You could avoid that fuel line. But the reality is that over time, that's probably not happening. I avoid the fuel line simply because I know to avoid it. But according to the article that was in DeLorean World Magazine, and I think they quoted Danny Botkin from DMC California, that this particular fuel line is really has been found to be the main cause of those engine fires. The failure of that fuel line has been associated to those engine fires, okay? And it's mainly because it's literally in the way of everything. It's the closest, it's the furthest out. All these other fuel lines are way back here, right? This particular fuel line here, it's probably one of the shortest ones. That is the kind of the culprit, right? So if you're gonna replace any of the fuel lines, that's the one I would replace. If you're only gonna replace one, which doesn't make sense, that would be the one to replace, because that is the one that has led to the majority of the engine fires that are out there. So I did want to point that out. I think I pointed that out in the video we had, Don't Be That Guy, which talks about and shows you how to replace the fuel lines in your car. That was a video I made replacing my fuel line. So me and Chris Miles, we did that. I recorded the whole thing. It's kind of a long video, but I would definitely recommend checking that out. I think either in the beginning or the end of that video is when I kind of talked about that DeLorean World Magazine article. If you guys have any questions about that, just let me know, and I'd be happy to respond about that. But bottom line, these all need to be replaced, all 13 in the engine compartment, and there's 4 more throughout the car that need to be replaced as well. So I definitely recommend doing that. So again, the 2 hoses at the fuel pump and then also at the fuel accumulator need to be replaced. So getting back to this auction, let's take a look at what we got here, and let's zoom out. All right, so this one sold for $54,500. All right, and it is still lunchtime, and I'm getting hungry, so I think we're gonna wrap up the live stream. So congratulations to Mushad. I'm not sure how you pronounce that. Mad City, blah 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 fuel lines, blah 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 coolant bottle, blah 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 eyebrows. Until the next one. It kind of it kind of surprises me that people are taking safety issues so lightly, right? I mean, it's almost like they're trolling these listings, saying, "Oh yeah, don't worry about your fuel lines. Don't worry about these safety items." No, you should worry about those. right? Safety is a way of life in general, and certainly for DeLorean owners, right? We want to make sure our cars are safe to drive, and safe for the next owner. You know, I plan on owning mine forever. I am never going to sell it. But this guy just bought this car a couple years ago, right? He had a chance to replace the fuel lines, and who knows? Maybe that influenced the bidding here. You don't know. I mean, he ended up losing some money on this, right? I think he paid the BAT fees when he won the auction almost 2 years ago, and he ended up losing $1,000 or whatever. And this guy, let's put a comment in here. So I'm gonna I don't know about ignore. I would say and be careful. Oh, be mindful. That's a better way of saying it. Congrats, and be mindful of the folks advising against addressing safety items on the car. Safety is of paramount importance when it comes to any car. Identified safety issues on the DeLorean should always be addressed. Yeah, I honestly, I don't know what's with some of these guys saying, yeah, just leave the original fuel lines in, you're good. I see that. It's disappointing, especially coming from other owners. I don't know what to say about that, everyone, but I think you guys know my position on the issue. I think you guys know Chris Miles' position on the issue. A lot of other experts too, I mean, not just, like Danny Botkin, for example, Toby Peterson, a lot of other experts out there, Mike McElhatton, Rob Grady, what do they have to say about it, right? A lot of these guys, I don't know what it is. Maybe it's, they've had bad experiences. I have no idea where these guys are coming from, the ones that are sort of advising against addressing these safety issues. I just don't know. But my 2 cents, my position is that these safety issues have to be addressed. Okay. Says he's a troll. Yeah, okay, so it makes sense. And that's what I thought too, I mean, trolling, bring a trailer, you see it a lot, right? And I think owners like us need to, address that, especially when we're talking about new owners that are, maybe they're not very familiar with the car, and they're using bring a trailer as their way of buying the car. A lot of people do. You see bring a trailer is kind of like the go-to place to get a DeLorean nowadays, right? And it seems to set the value of the car. A lot of the guys that I've actually talked to, some winners, auction winners here on Bring a Trailer, I talked to them after the fact, and helped them out a little bit. They didn't know a whole lot about the car. So when you see guys that are saying they're owners here saying, yeah, just leave the original fuel lines in, that's a huge red flag to me. Okay, we should not be advising unsafe habits here, unsafe behavior, right? It just doesn't make any sense. Right? It says here, if someone is too lazy to do safety maintenance, what else are they skipping on? Exactly. I mean, just you got to assume worst case scenario with these cars, and address the identified safety issues that should be done. Even if everything looks good, you can't inspect the inside of the fuel lines. Okay, that's kind of a wear and tear item. Okay, you can look at it from the outside, but you can't do any sort of internal inspection on these fuel lines. You don't know what's going on the inside. You just don't know. You don't know if there's cracking going on because of the embrittlement. You just don't know. The best thing to do, replace them with quality fuel hoses. Okay, DPI, they sell quality fuel hoses. I'm pretty sure DeLorean Go has a set, right? DeLorean.com, DMC, they have a set too. There's a reason why they offer this stuff, right? And you go with quality stuff. Make sure it's to get somebody who knows how to install them. I have a video on how to do it, and you got to look at that video. I would look at that video first, so you know what's involved, right? And I point out some of the stuff required for that too. Let's see here. Best thing to get an honorary one, which has not been around the engine. If you get a DeLorean, join your local club. Oh, again, yes, absolutely. Local clubs, lots of advice there. They may be able to help you when it comes to changing out the fuel lines. If you get some clubs that have, guys that are familiar with the car, worked on the car, I definitely recommend doing that. Anyway, guys, I think it's time to eat. And so Mark here says, I used the set from DeLorean Go, perfect fit, easy to do. Yeah, again, and a little help from Toby. Toby's great. I just talked to him, or I emailed him. I had a question about the easy oil drain, and he was really quick to respond. So Toby's a great resource if you ever need some help or some advice on the car. The community is always very supportive, is what I found. It's very easy to get advice from the community. Once in a while you get some guys that will troll and all that kind of stuff, and you just need to look kind of past all that. There are a lot of great guys out there that are willing to help you in your advice, in giving advice. Especially if you're a new owner or an existing owner, right? A lot of guys out there. I'm always willing to help owners out there with anything on the car, and if I don't have the answer, because I'm not an expert, but I know experts, right? If I don't know the answer, I just reach out. The first guy I go to is Chris Miles, right? I consider him an expert on the car. Danny Botkin is another expert on the car that I can reach out to. Toby. A lot of these guys the guys at DeLorean Midwest, they're always very helpful. Mike McElhatton, and you got Josh Shattenkirk there now as well. Speaking of which, a little plug for DeLorean Convention and Show, DCS 2023. So I will be there, and I don't know who else is planning on attending. Other than some of the local guys here, a lot of us are gonna make the flight out there, and we're gonna be there. So if you're planning on attending, hopefully we see you there. It's going to be August 3rd through the 6th, I think. And that is in Illinois. It's just outside of Chicago at Crystal Lake. That's actually where DeLorean Midwest is. So DeLorean Midwest is going to be hosting an open house on that Saturday. So we'll be there for that, just like we were there 2 years ago. It was a great event. Zach DeLorean was there. I'm pretty sure he's going to be there again this year. There's a few other guests that are also going to be in attendance, and it's a great way to network with other DeLorean owners out there. So really looking forward to making the trip out to DCS 2023. So if you go to, I think it's DeLoreanConvention.com, or there's a Facebook page as well. You can look for DCS 2023, and there's a link to the registration page that you can go to. And then there's also the hotel there is the Holiday Inn. So there is a DeLorean Convention rate that you're going to want to take advantage of, and Rich has provided links to that as well on the Facebook page. So if you're planning on attending DCS 2023, reach out, let me know. It's going to be great. Definitely recommend it, and hope to see you there. All right, so David's going to be there. Awesome. So David, we'll see you there for sure. It's going to be, I think, a great event. Owner for 1 year. I should want to thank you for the tech videos. I learned a lot. Glad you did. Would love to see some more in the future. Absolutely. We do have more planned for the future as well. It's not always easy to get stuff recorded because I think the next one I'm gonna do is I need to replace the axle boots on one of my CV axles. So one of the boots is just completely destroyed. Got to replace that. So that's probably going to be the next big thing I do on my car. So I'm going to do a full video on how to do that, and that'll be coming soon. I'm trying to think of what else I need to do offhand. I can't think of anything. That's kind of the big one there that I need to take care of. And obviously, locally here in California, if there's something that somebody needs done and they're local, I'll try to make it out to that and record it. It's not always the easiest thing in the world to do because obviously there has to be an opportunity to do that. I have a lot of other friends out there in other states that will let me know, hey, I'm going to be replacing. You want me to make a video? Yeah, absolutely. Right, so that's something that I'm always trying to get a hold of, or other owners out there doing videos of their maintenance or any other work they're doing on the car. We can present that on the channel for them as well, like how-to videos on how to do certain things to the car. And Mark, you're welcome. Thanks for watching. Appreciate that. So we'll end the stream on that note, and let's check to see if another car has gone on. It used to be that you'd have an auction. Why did I just do that? I just need to refresh it is all I need to do here. You would almost see one appear like right after the other one, but you don't see that as much. I think yeah, so they're kind of spread out a little bit more here. I think in May you had a couple that were really close together. But hopefully they will, put another auction out there that's compatible with my schedule. Again, I'm on my lunch hour, so this actually works out really well. It'd be even better if they did it on a weekend or something, or in the evening. I guess they just don't end auctions in the evening, and it's always during the day, and it's always unfortunate because it's always during my work hours. This one here just so happened that it was compatible with my schedule for today. Anyway, everybody, thanks again for watching, and we will see you in the next video.